Items to cover before we get started. First of all, this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the website that we'll share in the chat shortly. Note that your microphones and your cameras are turned off, so don't worry if you have any noise going on in the background, but we do want to hear from you this evening. So if you're joining us via Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. So please type in your questions in that Q&A box. Or if you're joining us on Facebook, please type in your comments in the, type in your questions in the comment box. And we will pause throughout the presentation to check those questions and respond with some answers. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Erica. So I'll go ahead and jump into the presentation, and we'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Daniel Harrison, and I'm with Fries & Nichols, and you just heard from Erica Craycraft. We are two of the people who are involved in this project, and then, of course, we've had effort from staff and others to help develop the draft zoning ordinance, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And so we'll be walking you through the virtual open house tonight. The agenda that we have is we are going to take a look at the process and an overview of where we are, and then we're going to do an introduction into the zoning ordinance and sort of show you everything that you sort of need to know about that. We'll also take an overview of the website in the virtual open house website, and so you can see everything that's on that. You can find the documents, you can take a part of the survey, and we'd really like you to visit that after the presentation. And then we'll highlight the key elements from the zoning ordinance itself that you'd be interested in when you take a look at what has changed and how things are different. And then, of course, we'll have a question and answer session in the middle here, and then also towards the end. So I'd like to take you through the overview of where we are in the project. We started working on the zoning ordinance back at the beginning of 2019. The first phase of the project was to look at everything that was currently going on, and we call that a diagnostic evaluation. And so in that process, what we do is we interview stakeholders, so people who are using the zoning ordinance frequently, have firsthand knowledge of the workings of it. And so we talk to city staff members, we talk to elected and appointed officials, that's your city council and your planning and zoning commission. We talk to downtown property owners and the development community, because these are all individuals that are frequently using the zoning ordinance. We also had public input. We had an open house, and here's some photos from the open house that we have where we laid out the project and sought input. You can see people in that photo on the right. We asked questions about what you would like to see in the city, and so we had input through our open house. We also had an online public engagement part where we had a survey for people to highlight their priorities and to rate those, tell us their favorite parts of town and why those were the favorite, what parts of town would they like to see improved, and then also their development preferences is another element that we asked through the online survey. That all culminated in a diagnostic report where the report that you see there on the screen, it identified issues and recommended solutions. So this is really the game plan for updating the zoning ordinance moving forward. And it really provided us the direction to do the update. We had 32 zoning items identified in that report, and we had a joint workshop in July 2019 to show that to the Planning and Zoning Commission and to the City Council to get their feedback. Then we moved into phase 2 of the project, and that was starting around January 2020, and that was the part of drafting the ordinance. So we had the input and the direction received, and then the second part of the project is really to draft the ordinance to have something that people can provide feedback on. And in that process, we worked with city staff to develop that document. We also had meetings with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we also had a meeting with the council to update them and to get their input on the process at that time. We are now in the third phase of the process, which is the refinement of the document and the adoption process. And so we're really in the refinement part. And what we're doing is we've had 4 joint workshops to discuss the draft with the City Council and Planning Commission. We also have the virtual workshop that we're doing right now. And of course, we'll have our online component running and open for a while. And then after tonight, and the open period for public comments concludes, we'll have at least 1 joint workshop to continue to refine the draft, look over the public input that we've received, present that to the council and the P&Z. Then we'll have 1 joint workshop public hearing for the consideration and adoption. So at that meeting, the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission is there for that meeting for the adoption. I'd like to give you an introduction into zoning. And so I know everyone watching may not be familiar with exactly how zoning works and how it's how that has occurred over time. So we're going to walk you through that and give you the highlights so you know what you'd be looking at in these drafts. So what is zoning? Cities in Texas are enabled to have zoning regulations by the state legislature, and it's for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, welfare, and morals of the residents of a community. And so generally what it includes zoning districts that you'll see on a zoning map like I have in the background here. And so we'll have a zoning map with zoning districts, and with those districts comes uses that are allowed in those districts. So you'll have some residential districts, you'll have some non-residential districts where you'll have businesses, and some districts you'll have a mixture of those two. Within those districts, there are standards that go along with that. So when you see landscaping, in a then also procedures are in zoning ordinances, which talks about how you get a special zoning approved, specific use permit. These type of elements and terms that we have processes that are in the zoning that you can take a look to see how that would work. And we often get questions from the public about, okay, I've heard about zoning and I've seen that map, and I also have heard about the comprehensive plan. How are those two related in this project? Well, the comprehensive plan was completed back in 2017. And the plan is really the vision for the city and lays out at a high level. This is where we want to go as a community. And then the zoning is really a tool to implement that vision, to say, we wanted this type of development. Well, how's that actually going to look when someone's trying to build a new business or build a home? And the zoning is really that tool that implements the vision. So the new zoning ordinance is really the way that the Destination Duncanville, the comprehensive plan for the community, is implemented. And now I'd like to take you through the virtual open house, and just to give you a preview of what we'd like you to do after the presentation today. If you're watching this on a recording through one of the platforms, you can either take your phone out and scan that QR code, or you can type in that URL. And what I'll do right now is I will share my screen, new screen, and show you what that project website looks like. So what we have here is, this will take you to, when you click on that link, it will take you to this website. And what we'd like you to do is to first fill out a survey. We'd like to know your thoughts on some important issues, and so we'd have your ability to provide that. We also have some open-ended questions that we'd like you to tell us after you've looked at these documents. Do you have any suggestions to improve the ordinance? General comments, we'd like you to provide those. And then we'd like to just know a little bit about you, whether you live in Duncanville, you work. We have some things that you can check, all these that apply to you. So this is an important thing that we'd like your help on, and we'd like your feedback. In helping you fill out that survey, we have, you can click on the tabs. And if you are interested to see any of the previous presentations that have gone on in the project, we have those in the meetings tab where you can go and you can look at the open house presentation. You can look at all the previous presentations. We have some options for if a meeting was recorded. You could watch the whole meeting and see what the discussion was about a certain item. So you could download the presentation, see what was in the presentation, and if something interested you, you could listen to the record or view the recording as well. So that's something, a feature that we thought would be very useful to you, and we'd like you to, if you'd like to take advantage of that, please do so. We also have a Documents tab. If you click on the Documents tab right here, if you click on this, it will pull up the zoning ordinance, the draft as it currently stands. And so you can go and take a look at that. One thing I wanted to highlight real fast is we have a helpful table right here at the start of the document. So if you're curious about where something was in the old district or the old zoning ordinance compared to the new zoning ordinance, there's a nice table, and you can click on these links. It'll take you to where it is in the current document, or it'll take you to a hyperlink to where you can find it online. We also have a notable revisions column here, so you can see why some things were changed, and you can really get a good glimpse just on a few pages about the whole layout and changes to the document in just a few pages. But then of course scroll through and you can look through the entire document itself to see where these standards are. We also have another once you're done with that, if there's anything else another comment or idea you would like to add, we have a place for that. You can also provide your name and email address if you want to stay updated on the process, and you could get informed that way. And then of course we do have a Spanish option if you'd like to take a look at it that way. We'll also have this meeting translated into Spanish, and those videos will be online later for that option as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and we'll switch back over to the other presentation. And so once again, if you want to just scan that QR code or go to that link, that is where you can take the survey. With that, we'll pause real quick to see if there's any questions. Erica, because we're about halfway through the presentation. Erica, are there any questions so far?
I haven't seen any questions yet, but we will keep an eye out. If anyone has any questions that come to mind, just type them in the Q&A or in the comment field just whenever they come up, and we will address those at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to walk you through the draft of the zoning ordinance and really hit the highlights. So when you're taking a look at this document, or you just want to provide feedback about what you hear during this presentation, you'd have the option to do that. So if you look at this page from the zoning ordinance itself, it is the table of contents. And so as sort of the education of what is in a zoning ordinance, I will walk you through just these sections very quickly. Article 1, that's just general provisions, tells about how we interpret the zoning map, explains how the zoning map's laid out, some technical stuff in there. What I think most people are interested in is when we get into the zoning districts, because everyone in the city is in a zone, so you can find out your district and what your standards are. So that lays out all the residential zoning districts, the non-residential zoning districts, and the special zoning districts. The next article you'd be interested in is the land use section. And that's our table that's really going to highlight what the appropriate uses are. Development standards, those are going to be where we have our landscaping or lighting standards, other interesting information, downtown Duncanville standards. You'll see that. We also have a section that lets you know who's responsible for reviewing your application. If you're trying to change the zoning on a property and want to know who you would be presenting that case to. That's all outlined in the development review bodies section. Zoning procedures, also, if you're wanting to do something like a plan development, or you're trying to get a specific use permit to maybe have a special use on a property, there's an option that you can do that. Also, variances and special exceptions. And then, of course, we have definitions. Throughout this document, everything's been hyperlinked. So if you see a term, you can just click on that link and it will take you to the term and you'll be able to find that information. So highlights on the zoning districts themselves. What this table in front of you shows is the previous or the current zoning districts are on the left side, and the new and the proposed districts are on the right side. And so you can see we've renamed, because what we've done is we've renamed and streamlined a lot of the districts where we're able to sort of eliminate duplication of effort. We were able to do that. And so you can see we were able to really go down from 24 zoning districts down to 14. Here on our non-residential zoning districts, able once again to combine districts, focusing on scale rather than use, and also merging districts to really streamline the process of seeing what we see on the map and also getting an application through. Here's our special zoning district. So I mentioned we have residential and non-residential. We also have special zoning district. That's a planned development district. We also have our mixed-use district, and then the downtown Duncanville district. And you can see how those were combined into the new districts of still planned development, local office, retail, and downtown Duncanville. Here is a picture of the current zoning map. And you can see that on the left side. Once again, the previous zoning districts on this table are shown on the left. The combined districts are shown on the right. With our new zoning map that you can see, we've updated the colors to show the combination of districts. And then once again, I'd like to highlight that we aren't changing any zoning or changing one zoning district to another. It's just combining zoning districts. So no actual rezoning property is occurring through this map process. Next thing I'd like everyone to know about when they're looking at the zoning ordinance. So first part is understanding that everywhere in the city is in a zone. And so you can see what that zone is, what the dimensional standards are, the minimum lot size, setbacks for a building. You can see all that. The other critical part is what you see on the screen. So what we have is you'll see a column on the far left that has all the uses. And when we say what is a use is the use of the property. So if I'm talking about residential, is it a single family home? Is it an assisted living center? That's a use. And if we're talking non-residential, is it a restaurant? Is it a hotel? So we have non-residential uses. So we have the uses listed on the left side of the screen, and then on the top side, what you're seeing is all the zoning districts. And the dots that you see on the screen really let you know whether that use is allowed in that district. So you can see a solid dot means it's permitted by right, which means it's you go and you get your building permit, and then you build your structure. The other the circle that is not filled in, that means it's a permitted with a specific use permit, which means you need to go first before you get your building permit. You need to get that specific use permit approved from the city. We have additional regulations that are just listed here on the side, so a lot more convenient to find these, so you won't have to do a lot of searching in the document. The most critical thing, most people are looking for that, is the parking standards. So you can see what the parking standards are going to be required for a business. We also have links in here, so if you're wanting to know what the standard for a use was, you could click on that and it would take you to that information, and you could understand what type of standards go along with that specific use. Other things that we wanted to highlight, about short-term rentals. So one of the major changes would be you would need to get a permit from the city if you're doing a short-term rental, having no outstanding issues on the property, and there'd be an annual report of all the rentals, so the city would know. There's also part of paying a hotel and occupancy tax. So if you stay at a hotel, these are taxes that are paid for staying at a hotel. This would also apply to the short-term rentals. Proof of insurance to make sure that the home is insured if there was an injury or something along those lines. And then, of course, through the registry, the city would reserve the right to remove a problem property from the registry, thus not allowing it to be a short-term rental if it was in violation of these standards that you'd see here on the screen. Accessory buildings, we think that is something that people would be interested in. For the accessory buildings, no permit is required if it's less than 120 square feet and 13 feet in height. So if you're smaller than 13 feet, it wouldn't be required. Accessory buildings are prohibited in easements. And what is an easement? You may have a drainage easement where water is supposed to flow, or a utility easement, maybe where there's a gas line or something along those lines. Accessory buildings are prohibited in those areas. But we'd also have an exemption for accessory buildings located with agricultural uses. One of the key elements is the number and size of how many accessory buildings you have is regulated. Here on the chart, you can also find this in the zoning ordinance itself. If you have a smaller lot, you can have 2 accessory buildings. And when I say a smaller lot, you can see on the screen that's 10,000 square feet or less. Once we get to 10,000 to roughly 20,000 square feet, you have 3 accessory buildings. And then once you're 20,000 square feet or greater, that's when you can have up to 4. So our accessory building standards are really derived a lot on our lot size, existing lot size, to make sure that all those things can be accommodated on a smaller lot. Sundry stores, these are often called dollar stores as well. One of the standards that we had in there was requiring a 5,000-foot separation between these stores and requiring 10% of the floor area to be dedicated to fresh produce, meat, dairy products, and these are designated during the SUP process. Feedback was making sure that there's concern about the proliferation of these stores and providing services to the neighborhood, and are they compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. So this is one option to ensure that compatibility. And here's just an example of this would be 2 of those stores closely together, and so the regulations that we talked about on the previous screen would increase the separation between these two businesses. Outside commercial storage screening. So when I want you to think, when you're thinking about outside storage, this could be cars, equipment, things that are just stored outside of a business. So screening would be required for all outside storage, and that really takes into effect, after those things have been there for 24 hours and they're not for sale. So if they're just being stored on the property, that need to be screened. And they can be screened with a 6-foot solid screening wall or some type of fence with landscaping. There's different options for the screening for that, but the one exception we do have is in the industrial district. You could have some type of open fencing in the industrial, and those are the examples that you see on the right side of the screen. So you can see a solid screen of an open space or open storage area, maybe one with there's a sort of wrought iron screening, but it's the evergreen trees are in front of that, or you could have the open fencing as you see in that last illustration. No wood or chain link would be acceptable for that. And then if the building was designed that to screen with the walls of the building and the design of the building, then the screening is not required as long as it's not visible from the right of way. And so with that, I'd like to see if there's any questions that we have at this time.
We do have a couple of questions. One of them is a question about how you can find out what your zoning is at a particular location. And I thought maybe you could show us on the website, the map.
Yes. I can. I will switch back over to the website. because we'd like everyone to utilize this website because it's a great resource where I think you can find all your information. And I'll go here to the Documents tab. And one thing I failed to highlight earlier is download the ordinance, please, and you can take a look. You can also click this link here to go to the current zoning ordinance if you'd like to take a look. You can also take a look at the Destination Duncanville comp plan. But we also have here on the website a map that shows the current zoning ordinance and what the new zoning ordinance or the new zoning map would take a look like. So if we're wanting just to, and we have a little slider here, so you can see what the current is on the left and the proposed is on the right, and you would just use this slider. I'm going to minimize this legend so you can see that a little bit easier as I go with that slider. So the question is, if I wanted to know what my property was, I would simply just scroll into this area, and hopefully this is no one's house who's watching this, because I don't want to picking on you. But if we're just taking the corner right here, we can see here's the current zoning and here's what the proposed zoning would be. And so once again, so you could just go and click on your house or your business and see how that zoning would look under the new ordinance or the old one. And this is a good example to show that if you take a look at this red area here, that the colors have changed, but the zoning boundaries have not. Unless it have not. And just the example here is these have been combined into one, the two that you see over here on this side. So good question.
Okay, we have one other question. Someone's asking, we have several small businesses. How will this new zoning ordinance affect them?
It won't affect existing businesses. Existing businesses will operate the same as they currently are operating. Really, compliance with new standards would come into effect if someone was building a new building, or come into place at that time. So existing businesses, they just continue on, and then new businesses would need to conform.
Okay, that is all the questions that I see for now. If anyone has any questions that come up later, feel free to contact the Planning and Zoning Division at the city or submit a comment on the website and we'll be sure to get back to you. Oh, sorry, we have one more question. Will the zoning map still be available online?
Yes, you can look at the viewer that I have on the screen. This will be available. Of course, the current map also is you can download that from the city website or just get it here. And then we could also, if you wanted to, we could add a PDF link also to this Documents tab here if that is something that's useful for everybody, in addition to the viewer here.
I see we also have one other question. The question is, I have 3 accessory buildings. Will I have to take one down?
No, you'll not. If it's we have a section in there and that addresses non-conforming situations, and I know that sounds like a big word, but that's really just a situation where we have stuff that was legally done, that was done correctly to start with, and then if the standard is changed, well then what that non-conforming means is sort of like grandfathering. You're continuing to allow to use that those three structures, so no one would require you to take it down.
Okay, I see another question coming in. When the zoning in various residential and business areas is combined, did we create higher or lower standards when they were combined?
Good question. When we combined, if you remember, there was a slide a few slides back, and we showed how we combined a few of the districts. And there were some standards in there where when we combine two districts, what standards do you take out of those two districts? When we were going through the process, I mentioned non-conforming, and that's a goal that we have, is to try to minimize all non-conformities. So there's just avoiding headaches in that situation for the owners of those properties. So we take, if there were two standards, we take the lower standard. So because the standards are close to begin with, and for instance, let's say there was a minimum house size, and it was 200 square feet difference between one was, let's say one was 3,000 and the other one was 2,800. We would take the 2,800 because everything then in the combined district, if it starts with that 2,800, is conforming. Because if we take the 3,000, then we would take the homes that were in the previous 2,800, potentially making them non-conforming. So that's why we try to avoid that. So in that situation, we would take it's lower, but it's comparable. I don't want that to sound like there's low standards, like low quality, but that's not what it's saying. We're going with the most compatible on there. And so that would be the lower of the two numbers. Good question.
We have another question from someone who has some rental properties, and they're wondering how this will affect their rental properties.
It shouldn't affect your rental property, because as far as the standards that sort of highlighting before was just about really short-term rentals. So and that's more for operating, as business and the hotel occupancy tax, things of those natures. But as far as renting, it shouldn't affect rental property, because it'll still be used as a house. The ownership is not really zoning relevant.
Okay. Does the zoning affect whether I can install a satellite dish?
Good question. I don't believe we have anything in there that would affect your satellite dish installation. You would probably need to be there. A homeowners association may be more of a concern if a satellite dish is being put in. But as far as the zoning, I don't. Regular satellite dish, Dish Network, DirecTV, all that stuff, that would not be affected by the zone.
Okay, another question. When are you looking at this being implemented?
Great question. We're taking a look at what we're going to have the website open for the public for a couple weeks. I forget my exact date here, but it's going to be 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Thank you, Erica. And so we're going to have this open, and then what we're going to do is we're going to collect all the information. We're going to take it back to the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission so they can see what comments people made, and we can look at those and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made to any of the information that you see. And then after that, depending on how many adjustments need to be made, or if we're really close to the goal, and we're not having that much feedback, it would be a joint public hearing to consider adoption. But there could be a couple extra meetings in there. Excuse me. So we'd be looking for December, January, maybe February, in there, that time frame.
Okay, I see another question. Can I do home gardening in the front yard?
Excuse me. Yes, there's nothing that prevents any home gardening or anything like that. You could.
All right, it looks like that is all the questions for now. Again, if you have any other questions that come up, please contact the Planning and Zoning Division or send us a comment on the website.
Yes, and I'll highlight that one more time where you can go ahead and click on submit a comment, and you can submit it that way. And Eric and I will be looking at those comments as they come in. So we'd appreciate everyone trying to, as you look through the documents, if you have any comments, submit those, and we'll take those into consideration. All right. Well, with that, we'd like to thank everyone for watching tonight, or if you're later watching this on video, thank you. Please feel free to, once again, scan that barcode or scan the QR code at the bottom or type in the link, and please fill out the survey on the website. Thank you, everybody, for attending.